Many people ask me, how do I get rich and retire early? But honestly, the real question should be, why do you want to do that? If you don't have a clear why, it's very easy to give up when things get tough. For me, the reasons were simple but powerful. I was fed up with being broke and struggling every day. I was tired of being just average in the eyes of society. I didn't want to repeat the cycle my parents went through, working hard their whole lives only to be buried in bills. When your why is big enough, you will figure out the how on your own. 3 paths to wealth. From my actual experience, I realized that to achieve financial freedom in less than 10 years, I had to focus on mastering 3 core skills: refining business skills, learning how to build a self-operating system; refining money management skills, knowing where your money goes and how much of it you keep; refining investment skills, making money work for you instead of you working for money. Facing the greatest enemy, self-doubt. The biggest enemy isn't the market or the economy, it is the self-doubt and laziness inside each of us. Whenever you plan to do something great, that little voice in your head will say, you can't do it, or you don't have the money. Don't argue with those voices. Instead, turn your fear and your hatred of being broke into passion. Passion is the combination of what you deeply love and what you deeply hate. Create your own love and hate list. To find your drive, I suggest you grab a pen and write down things you love, for example, freedom, traveling while you're still young, or providing the best for your family; things you hate, hating poverty, hating being stuck in a job you disliked, or hating the constant worry over monthly bills. Once you clearly understand what you want and what you fear, you will find the strength to stand up and make a change. Money doesn't bring absolute happiness, but it gives you time to do what you love, and the luxury of not having to do what you hate. Start today by setting a clear goal and writing it down. Don't wait until you're 60 to think about retirement, because by then you might be too tired to enjoy life. Why retiring early is the best decision you'll ever make. Learning how to do nothing was actually the hardest challenge I had ever faced. The shock of stopping. For years, we are conditioned to a certain rhythm: school, exams, meetings, red-eye flights, deadlines, and chasing numbers. When everything suddenly stops, I felt completely lost. The feeling of uselessness. I'd wake up in the morning with no plan, no urgent calls to take, and no emails to answer. Instead of enjoying it, I felt redundant, like I was wasting my life. The pressure of silence. I tried vacationing on paradise islands like Fiji, but after a few weeks of staring at the ocean and eating tropical fruit, I felt lethargic. I actually found myself wishing I was back in the US, starting a new business. It seemed more exciting than paradise. Eventually, I realized I had to learn how to slow down. My wife and I moved to a small, secluded cabin in the mountains of New Mexico. There was no TV, no cell service, just nature and absolute silence. How a year of rest changed my life. It took almost 6 months of living in that solitude before my mind finally settled. And it was during that period of doing nothing that I discovered values that busyness had always hidden from me. Reconnecting with the past. I had the time to remember old friends, past mistakes, and even old successes. I realized I couldn't change the past, but I could change how I viewed it to better prepare for the future. Appreciating the now. I understood that the most important thing isn't where am I going, but where I am right now and who is standing in front of me. Giving someone your full presence in the moment is the greatest gift. Finding true passion. Once my mind was no longer weighed down by the pressure to earn a living, new ideas began to sprout.
It was during this time that my first drafts on financial philosophy and educational money games were born. It wasn't work born out of necessity anymore. It was an inner calling. My sincere advice from experience. I truly want to encourage you to retire as early as you possibly can, not so you can be lazy, but so you can have the chance to start your life over in a wiser, deeper way. If you can't retire just yet, try to spend at least 1 hour every month sitting quietly by yourself to reflect. You will realize things you thought were extremely important are actually not that significant. Time is gold. Don't waste it on things that don't bring you happiness. Stopping for a minute is sometimes harder than staying busy, but that is when you truly start living. Life is full of chaos, but no matter what, take a moment to cherish your current life, because tomorrow, everything you have today will simply be a memory.
There's a strange paradox in this. Many people working in the finance and banking sectors are the very ones helping people like me retire early, while they themselves continue to grind away every day. The difference between your own money and other people's money. An example of a middle-class couple who retired using a 401k-style accumulation plan, saving their own out-of-pocket money and investing it in stocks. They had to wait until they were nearly 60 to retire because they were using their own blood, sweat, and tears cash flow to pin their hopes on the market. As for me, I retired at 47. The secret isn't that I'm smarter, it's that I know how to use debt and collateral value. Many people are terrified when they hear the word debt, but look at the reality. Traditional investors use their own cash, carry all the risk themselves, and must wait 10 to 20 years for the market to appreciate before seeing a profit. I use money from, well, you bankers, to buy real estate. I use debt to acquire assets, and I use those assets to generate cash flow. Don't invest for appreciation, invest for cash flow. A banking director once asked me, "Why don't you invest in stocks? Haven't they grown better than real estate over the last 10 years? My accumulation plan is performing excellently." I asked her just one question. Every month, how much actual cash does that plan put in your pocket to spend? The answer? 0. It's all just numbers on paper, waiting for the day she grows old enough to withdraw it. She is investing for capital gains, hoping the future price will be higher than it is today. I invest for cash flow. Every month, my properties give birth to money. That amount is enough for me to live comfortably without caring whether the stock market is green or red tomorrow. If the market crashes, I still own the house and people still have to pay me rent. The most interesting part is that those same banking executives would never lend you money to play the stock market because it's too risky, yet they are more than willing to lend you money to buy real estate. So here is how it works. They use savers' money to lend to me. I use that money to buy real estate. That real estate pays for my early retirement. Meanwhile, the bank managers themselves are sitting around waiting for their pension funds to increase in value and fearing a market collapse. They help clients like me get rich, but they can't help themselves escape the daily rat race. Don't just focus on saving your own pocket money. Learn how to use financial leverage intelligently and aim for assets that generate monthly cash flow. That is the shortest path to being free to do what you love while you're still young.
The trap of traditional safety advice. Back in the day, when I first stepped out into the world, I often received advice from older people, those with an old mindset, like this. Try to study hard, find a stable job, and try to save money. They always told me, don't borrow anything from anyone. A penny saved is a penny earned. Or, if you don't have the money, don't buy it. Always pay in cash to be safe. But when observing their own lives, I noticed a huge contradiction. They advised me not to borrow, yet they themselves often borrowed to buy a house to live in or a car on installment. They were afraid of investing because they thought investing is risky, but whenever there was an emergency, they had to break the piggy bank and withdraw all their savings to spend. Meaning they were willing to borrow to buy things that made them poorer, liabilities, but never dared to borrow to buy things that could generate profit. The consequence is that they worked hard their whole lives, could never retire early, and even worked until they were sick, a very exhausting cycle. Cognitive shock: how to make money work for you. Luckily, later on, I had the opportunity to interact with and learn from an incredibly successful and wealthy mentor. He completely shattered my old mindset with extremely tough questions. Calculate this. How long will it take you to grind and save $1 billion? And how long will it take to borrow $1 billion? In the long run, who is richer? Someone who tightens their belt their whole life to save $1 billion, or someone who knows how to borrow $1 billion at a 10% annual interest rate, then invests it for a 25% annual return? In your opinion, who do banks prefer to lend to? A hard-working salaried employee, or someone who knows how to make money generate more money smartly and safely? Why are savings taxed, inflation, income tax, but debts are not? From those questions, I realized a harsh truth. The poor and the middle class struggle forever because they only revolve around using the money in their own pockets. But to become truly wealthy, the core principle is you must know how to use other people's money, OPM. Leverage, the ultimate weapon, but also a double-edged sword. But wait, before you rush out to borrow money, I must give a crucial warning in this video. I absolutely do not advise you to blindly borrow indiscriminately or drown in debt for reckless investment. I've seen people carelessly swipe their credit cards to speculate on real estate and then go bankrupt, later blaming it on the advice of using debt to get rich. Never use credit cards or high-interest loans for risky investments. What I want to emphasize here is you must learn how to use debt wisely. In the financial world, besides cash flow, there is a second important keyword, which is leverage. Do you remember the story of David and the giant Goliath? The small David defeated the giant because he used a slingshot. That is leverage. When you understand leverage, even with a low starting point, you can still achieve great things. Take the Beatles, for example, who earned more money than the president back in the day. Why? Because they had the massive leverage of television, radio, and records to reach millions of people simultaneously. You don't have to be a superstar to get rich, but you absolutely must know how to use some form of leverage. The rich get richer faster simply because they know how to use financial leverage more frequently and effectively than the rest. However, leverage is always a double-edged sword. If used incorrectly, it will slash your wallet and drag you down to the verge of bankruptcy in the blink of an eye. The difference between good debt and bad debt. The reason many people work hard but still carry a heavy burden of debt is that they lack the most important leverage, the leverage of financial literacy. So in this video, the biggest lesson I want to send to you is, whatever leverage you use, first equip yourself with financial knowledge to clearly understand what you are doing. Specifically, you must clearly distinguish between good debt and bad debt. Good debt is a debt that steadily puts money into your pocket every month. My personal example, I borrowed money from the bank to buy a house, then rented it out. The monthly rent paid by the tenant is more than enough to cover both the principal and interest of the bank loan, and the surplus cash flows straight into my pocket. That is a smart loan. Bad debt is a debt that takes money out of your pocket every month. Example, borrowing to buy a fancy car on installment just to look cool, or taking out consumer loans to buy expensive phones.
Every month you have to bite the bullet and take money from your salary to pay the debt, while those items depreciate every day. Final advice. After watching this video, try taking out a pen and paper and list for yourself what good debts and bad debts you are currently holding. The next step on the path to financial freedom is to find every way to minimize the bad debt list and increase the good debt list. Always remember, all debts are like loaded guns. Master them and use them very carefully.